Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
That's me.
And we're going to talk about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power on Netflix.
Kind of.
Now, this is going to be a rare instance where I think I actually agree with some of the complaints coming from people that worked on the show. There's been a lot of conversation lately from the animation community, on and off of Twitter, thank God, about the pay rates and the working conditions of people working on predominantly streaming cartoons.
Yes.
Because these streaming services like Netflix are churning out so much content that they're really cracking the whip and pinching the pennies.
Well, weren't Netflix the ones that were hiring people overseas too, and then they weren't paying them like a fair rate or something like that?
Yeah, well, this is the unfortunate truth of the animation industry for all you cartoon stands out there who accidentally found this video. The unfortunate truth is that all the cartoons that you love are created on the backs of people who are probably underpaid.
That's true.
Massively underpaid, and it doesn't matter which show you're watching, even if it has a US production team, chances are it's animated overseas in Korea or the Philippines or China, and those animators, the ones that actually do the grunt work, are probably not being paid very well. This is how they keep the costs down. This is how they produce the shows that you love. And this is unfortunately how it's been done for decades. And I don't see it changing anytime soon.
No.
I think it needs to, especially, look at what's going on in Japan. It's like that.
It's really bad over there.
All over the world. It's like that all over the world. So we'll talk about this interesting situation. Now, I don't think that there's going to be a She-Ra movie after all these complaints.
No, I don't think there's going to be a She-Ra movie in general. I think that if you didn't think so before, you definitely are going to think so now because they weren't saying anything before.
Right.
So if they're coming out and saying stuff now, that likely isn't going to happen.
Yeah, that ship has probably sailed. So let's talk about this before.
Bye, ships.
Bye-bye, ships. All those ships.
Bye.
All the ships from She-Ra. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 262,000 subs.
Yay!
Thank you so much for the support. We do talk about the animation industry, knowing a lot of people in the animation industry and being fans of, believe it or not, fans of cartoons ourselves. And we've been incredibly critical of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power for a number of reasons. Not just the show itself, though.
But mostly what we've been critical about with the show was the fact that it was, one, it's not even She-Ra. It's another show with She-Ra paint on it. Two, the PR around the show was absolutely terrible. And they just started off by pissing on fans and being assholes. Of course, that wasn't the people that did the animation's fault, unless they were out there making comments too.
Yeah, and some of them were. I mean, some of them were making some, the voice actors were making fun of the actors on the original show. And
yeah, stuff like that. But the people on the show, and of course, not everybody's going to be like that. We're not going to say everybody is, because that wouldn't be fair or, accurate. But the animation it got better. It started out, I think, a lot rougher than it ended up being. But you could tell it was only a one order of 52 episodes, which is what we said the entire time.
Yeah, it was in 2 batches of 26. People kept saying it was a 5-season run. It wasn't. At the most, it would be 2 broadcast seasons.
So when Neon made the comment that they had wrapped it up and it was done, that was true. They had done the second set of 26 episodes. It was over and done with. Just because they hadn't aired did not mean that they were making more.
Right.
But back to the point, which is, now the animators are coming out and they are like, well, we got screwed.
Yeah, so let's back the bus up here a little bit and talk about
explain to people what this is.
Yeah, the new deal for animation. They're basically talking about how streaming has upset the apple cart in the animation industry. Now, animation has not been a very high-paying
Yeah, I was
field.
going to say, it wasn't great before.
But it's worse now that these streaming services are looking for so much cheap content.
Yeah, they want a lot of content. And they don't want to pay much for it.
And it's also part of the reason that some of the shows are getting canceled. Because,
and some of them look like shit.
Yeah, and some of them look like shit. It's like, why are they doing also, flash animation and stuff like that? It's like, because it's cheap. It's cheap to do stuff like that. And, talking about Japan, we talked about the situation in Japan with Japanese animators and the poor working conditions over there, which has come up in, multiple conversations, but also the difference in Japan versus the US is a lot of times when they greenlight an animated series, they've got a marketing plan in place. They actually sit down with the toy companies, the video game companies, They know how to make their money back on.
You're not allowed to say
stuff.
that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because it's just made to sell toys? It's made to sell manga? How dare you?
Right. So the anime series are basically commercials for toys, video games, and manga. And over here, unfortunately, even if there are some good shows like Infinity Train was obviously not designed to sell merchandise. And if the money's not coming from commercials, from advertising, then it has to come from subscriber dollars. If it's not coming from subscribers, then you have to, find another way to bankroll it. And what happens is they cut corners and cut pay. And it's become quite the sticky situation.
Right. This is why I wouldn't recommend animation as a career.
Especially now with streaming. And this has come up before with, a lot of, Hollywood actors working on like Disney Plus shows and stuff like that. Like their contracts covered theatrical releases, broadcast deals, stuff like that. And then you bring streaming into it and it's like, oh shit, all the rules are out the window at this point. Now, the flip side of that, as we discussed before we started recording the video, is that these employees, people that worked on She-Ra and other shows, they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into.
That's true. They knew, and they agreed to it. So,
and they agreed to it. It's buyer's remorse. This happened with Tokyo Pop too, with a lot of people who had book deals through Tokyo Pop. They waited until 5 or 6 years after the fact to complain about it, but they were walked through exactly what was involved. And if you took a bad deal, I'm sorry. I am sorry, but it is what it is. Anyway, so Game Rant has a pretty good write-up as to what the complaints are. And this is across the board, not just She-Ra. They said that animated series are more popular than they've been forever. Yeah. Once seen as a form of entertainment primarily for children, it's become a core staple of the TV and streaming content industry. True. So the proliferation of animated content over recent years has been due to the rise of streaming services. That's true. Netflix is known, for its animation and all of that. And HBO Max, right out of the gate, they had shows that would have been Adult Swim shows.
Right.
They put them on HBO Max. But they said that there is a concern about budget loopholes and tight deadlines imposed by content providers. Netflix has been at the center of this in many, many, many cases.
They have been a lot, yes.
So now there's a hashtag New Deal for Animation that's supposed to be illuminating some of the complex inner workings that have affected and continue to affect fan favorite animated shows. They're talking about, the season splitting for streaming.
Oh, you mean like
series.
where you have like 6 episodes and that's considered a season? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So, yeah. So She-Ra was basically 2 seasons, two broadcast seasons of 26 episodes. Netflix broke it up into 5 seasons. They did this with Voltron too, and they continue to do it with live action shows too. They're like, oh look, it's a season of 3 episodes.
I think it's because they're trying to get it up faster. Like, we don't have any more than this done, so we'll call it a season, and then we have like a break for a few months. Yeah,
well, here's the because sometimes the episodes are in the can, right?
Right.
Like the season doesn't air. But the first couple episodes, like if you're dealing with The Simpsons, like those episodes have been done for like a year by the time they get the whole order done and, whatever.
Yeah, but they don't, but the season thing is in name only.
Right. They say customarily, animation workers receive pay boosts for series that are renewed for multiple seasons. This serves as a way to keep quality talent on projects and serves as leveraging power for the creators behind projects that fans have an appetite for. However, the way production contracts are negotiated for streaming can sometimes engender a large number of episodes that are produced at once and artificially broken up into different seasons by the service.
Right. So they actually only had a 52 episode order. They counted it as one thing.
Yes.
And then they turned around and said there were multiple seasons, but as far as the accounting is concerned, it was one.
Right. Like you're not getting a raise because those 26 episodes
was one order.
It was one order, right? According to one member of the Animation Guild who was contacted for an explanation, for fans, companies producing content under new media terms are allowed to pay lower wages and benefits to the people making the shows, more so during first seasons than in subsequent seasons. This is probably why a lot of these shows get canceled after one season.
Right. They have one season and boom, done.
Boom, done. Yeah. And plus, Netflix, they know. Like Netflix knows within the first couple of weeks, like, is this show a hit or not? Look at Cowboy Bebop. They put a ton of resources into that. They canceled it a couple days after it debuted. Because they're like, yeah, we spent how much money and this is all the people that are watching it?
Right.
Hell no. When companies order a season of a certain number of episodes, they get the discounted rates for that whole season. But what we're seeing more and more is that streaming companies are breaking up that first season into different seasons for consumers.
And She-Ra, 5 seasons, my ass. It was 1 season, apparently.
Yeah, it was, well, depending on...
One order.
One order. But it was 2 26-episode batches.
Right.
They're making as much profit as they can by marketing smaller drops or chapters to the people watching the content, then they're still benefiting from the first season discounts. It's almost like a drip. It's almost like crowdfunding, like or a beta. You know, you look at Steam, and Steam will let you, play the beta version of a game for a while. It's almost like, well, as we're working on this show, we'll trickle out the first 10 episodes, and we'll kind of gauge interest and see what happens. Because the bargaining terms for new media streaming were negotiated between the studios and the Animation Guild in 2009. So before streaming
Before it's like it is now, yes.
Yeah, they're probably thinking like, oh, webisodes, Flash and that sort of thing. It can be hard to make them accurately reflect the explosive market growth for streaming content in the past decade. Talking about Infinity Train. Yeah, I said every season of Infinity Train was part of our season 1 contract, including the unproduced 5th season script, noted one writer from the show's production.
So they order like a big batch, and even if they're saying, okay, like 52 episodes for She-Ra, that was 2 seasons. It was actually 1 season according to Netflix. It was 1 order, and then they split it up.
Yeah, so they're basically overworking people. This goes,
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, this goes on and on. We'll talk about the specific examples in regards to She-Ra, but they're trying to do more with less. They don't have as many people working on these streaming shows.
So they overwork the ones they have. Yes. They don't pay them fairly, and it's becoming a problem.
Yeah, it's become normal practice to ask one worker to perform what would have been 3 or 4 different jobs just 10 years ago.
But I want to point out, to be fair, that's normal practice for a lot of companies, not just animation. This sounds shitty, but I know many places that they turned around and laid off a bunch of people, and then the ones they had, they basically said, okay, you're doing their job too, and we're not giving you more money. And if you want a job, you'll do it. So this isn't anything new. It's becoming an accepted practice across the board. They're just leveraging it.
Right. And, this isn't just in the US. I mean, this is happening overseas as well. In Japan, same kind of a thing happening. And, it's a tough industry. It really is. A lot of people have moseyed on to greener pastures, either doing their own thing or, working for other companies or whatever. But again, these streaming services need massive amounts of content, and animation is popular. Mm-hmm. It is popular, but unfortunately, it does come with a price, which is usually the workers that produce the content. So let's go back to She-Ra. If you want to learn more about what the actual complaints are, go out to Twitter. I can't believe I'm telling you to go out to Twitter, but go out to Twitter. So here are the complaints in regards to She-Ra. So N.D. Stevenson, formerly Noel Stevenson, says the working conditions endured by the Netflix show's crew were less than ideal, describing a culture of staffers being exploited, overworked, and underpaid.
And that's not just here. That happens often. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it does.
I completely believe Stevenson here.
The only reason She-Ra was possible was because of the passion of people like Jen Bennett on our crew, and that passion was exploited as an excuse to underpay, understaff, and overwork. No one should have to go through that again.
Well, Stevenson's not. Stevenson cashed out, took the money, which is probably considerably more than everybody else got, and is on their own now. I
do believe Stevenson was paid pretty well for it being a streaming show. Now, that being said, it's not going to be as well as doing like a Disney Channel show or something. And I have to wonder too if there isn't a loophole that they're putting these shows
Disney
on
Plus.
Yeah, they're putting these shows on streaming first. And the reason
that would explain a lot. They are getting rid of Disney channels in a lot of countries too, in lieu of Disney Plus.
Yeah. Or they'll say, hey, this ran on Disney Plus first, so it's covered by the new media deal, and then we're going to put it on Disney Channel.
Yeah, so as much as Disney is out there, and you're all like, yeah, Disney, you show it to Florida and all this crap, Disney keeps doing a lot of shit. And it just isn't, they do stuff like this. If they can get away with, not paying people and they're paying them very low, they're going to do it.
So Stevenson went on, we're losing so many brilliant voices to burnout in this industry. We love our jobs, and our jobs aren't sustainable. Animation workers deserve to be fairly compensated and treated humanely. We deserve to last. Those days, unfortunately, For a lot of studios that just want cheap content, those days are over.
Was there a day that they actually happened?
I think, yeah.
Maybe back in the 80s, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was better. I think now it's just...
You know why? Because they had money to bankroll it. They had toys.
Yes.
The things that you bitch about, like toy sales. You just were making shows to sell toys. Yes, but those people could be paid and they could do a hell of a lot more episodes.
Do you know who treated their workers very, very well? Filmation.
Mm-hmm.
Filmation
was also very diverse. Very
diverse. Filmation treated their workers very well. Very few people have anything negative to say about Filmation. And actually, Lou Scheimer was the one who came up with the 65 episode order for syndication.
To keep these people working all year.
To keep them working all year round. And as I understand it, talking to people who have worked for Filmation or around Filmation, Filmation treated their people very well, paid them competitively because, and there's all kinds of, crap talk about, them reusing animation and doing things on the cheap and yada,
They did that so they could pay their people well.
Yes.
Right. So I'm just like, which is it? Y'all want to bitch about certain things like that and make fun of it. But they were being paid a lot better because they could afford to, because there was money.
Yeah.
There were toy sales out the zoo. And some of the choices they made that you mock, like all the bodies look the same and everything else, was done to save money so that their people could, work longer and have better pay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So this is the thing. It's like, this is the trade-off. Like, if you want to bitch about, cartoons being marketed to kids or being marketed to sell toys or books or whatever, they kind of have to be. I mean, if you want to be paid better, the money has to come from someplace.
But anymore, they'll be paid better, and they still won't, or they'll make more money on it, and they won't pay their people better.
Well, that is true.
But there's nothing that they've done that really crosses that too much, except for like things like Pokemon and stuff like that.
So anyway, this is Bennett, who worked on She-Ra. I'm so glad I was able to work on She-Ra. It was the first show I worked on that had a voice I immediately got, but it was produced under side letter N in conditions. That would be new media, I believe, that I would never, ever willingly sign up for again. We need a new deal for animation for the uninitiated. Side letter N is described by TAG as the part of the Guildmaster CBA that covers streaming. Yeah, so back when these rules were written, again, 2009, it would have been like, oh, you're just doing web cartoons or webisodes or shit like that. Bennett continued, if you don't think the crew was projecting whole ass onto Adora in those final seasons.
I completely believe that crew was projecting whole ass into Adora and the characters. But I'm thinking projection in a completely different way than this person's meaning it.
Yep. A number of other creatives have voiced support for the new deal for animation movement. Dana Terrace from the Owl House, Alex Hirsch from Gravity Falls. We have My Life as a Teenage Robot creators, Powerpuff creators, Craig McCracken. And these guys, they actually had TV deals. So they had better...
They probably had better,
deals. They're still getting royalties and
I completely agree that they need to do something. It's not fair to put them under a different umbrella, and they're doing it now, and they're keeping it that way because it behooves studios like Netflix, like Disney with Disney Plus and things like that, to not have to pay people as much because it's considered as streaming.
What could potentially happen, though, and this is what we talk about, just because we say, hey, you're going to unionize and it's going to backfire, doesn't mean we're necessarily anti-union. As an old dog, I'm telling you what I've seen happen is a lot of times companies will push back and just be like, well, you're not worth the hassle.
Because here's the thing, for every one of these people that are mad now and want paid more, even though I understand and I'm not disagreeing with them wanting paid more, there's 100 people who want the opportunity and will gladly take the low pay just to say they can get in there and do it.
Yeah, or they will just outsource it to an overseas animation studio. I mean, that's kind of what I think is happening with Rooster Teeth right now, because Rooster Teeth, again, they would be under the streaming deal because most of their shows premiere online first, and they had all kinds of labor issues down in Texas, so now they're outsourcing the new series to Japan. And at that point, it becomes the Japanese studio or the Philippine studio. It becomes their problem. And I don't agree with the low page rates, the low pay, or not page rates, but the low rates over there at all. But unfortunately, that is kind of the industry standard now, that Hollywood expects, an episode of the show is going to cost $500,000. because we're budgeting for this cheap studio to do the animation
Well,
on
it's
it.
not just that. I'm thinking about comic books. And what happened was, so they started hiring people that were cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and got rid of people that were more expensive. And there was a lot of people lined up to do it for cheap because they wanted to get their foot in the door. But by doing that and taking less, they valued it less. So
Yeah.
now every time, they want more money, they'll just go, we'll go cheaper and cheaper. And it seems like it always is subtractive. It's never additive.
Yeah, and you look at, people were complaining about the Fairly Odd Parents live action reboot, and the animated sequences look terrible. They're very, very cheap, but I'm like, you're going to be hard pressed to get a show that looks as good as Gravity Falls current year because of the cost involved. Everything's going to Flash. Even, they're talking about the Cuphead show. The Cuphead show is actually, it's supposed to look like old timey wimey 1930s. Disney and Fleischer cartoons, and it actually looks, like a Flash cartoon in some regards because I think they're trying to cut some corners.
Right.
And I know Alex Hirsch with Gravity Falls, he actually did a Flash pilot, and then he said, no, we're going to send it to the same people that do The Simpsons, and it's going to be done right. And, it was a lot more expensive. And now they're shitting out content. Why is Sci-Fi doing like the Magical Girl Friendship Squad and that zoo thing that they did?
Are they still doing them? I've never heard anything else about it.
And so what's going to happen is, again, if there's no marketing component here to sell merchandise, animation's very expensive, and we've got people complaining that they want paid more. They're going to look at this situation, the studio heads, and they're going to be like, it's not worth doing.
Well, there's a reason too why they're heading back into animation for kids, like little kids, and they're pushing that a lot. A lot of studios won't look at pitches unless it's for younger audiences, and the reason being is because they can sell toys.
Yes.
And then that animation a lot of times is simpler, and they can sell toys and they make more money off it. Do I think they're paying the animators? No. But they're going to make more money off of it because it's a simpler animation style. But at the end of the day, I think they need to maybe make less and maybe pay people better and do better.
I think that's what's going to happen. I think there's going to, honestly.
Stop rebooting everything.
Well, the reason they reboot is because they think it's a safe bet, but then they reboot and they take it far from the source material.
Well, not just that, and they do it in a shitty way. It's like people, they need jobs. Point. Yeah, they need jobs, and they need better pay and better conditions. And, if you're spread too thin, then maybe you need to not spread yourself so thin and pay the people you have a little bit better and get better quality products.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it is a lot like comics, where there are far more people who want to work in the animation industry, and who are willing to work cheap to get their foot in the door than there is an industry to realistically support it. And I do think there's going to be less animation product. And I hate to call it product, but I think it just because the money's not going to be there.
Well, I think what's going to help them with this new animation deal, this new deal for animation thing, is the fact that everybody's pointing out how shitty some of this stuff looks, like the Nickelodeon scene they're showing how bad it is. And maybe because audiences are even like, what the hell? Wouldn't you be better off to have audiences that are actually going to watch your show and support your show and maybe buy your shit than be like, this looks like crap and not watch it?
Yeah. And this is why I think we see a lot of shows get canceled. There's lots of reasons, with the Owl House and whatever, Dana Terrace was complaining about, Disney being anti-gay or whatever the deal was. But at the end of it, it is the expense. Mm-hmm. And
they're not cheap, guys. No,
and you're asking the studios to spend more money. It's way cheaper to do something in live action than it is to...
That's why I was surprised when they said they were going to, because I know because of the pandemic, when they said they were going to do more animated stuff, I was like... That's not cost a ton of money. I was like, how are you going to do it? And we see now. And it looks like crap.
It's very cheap. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I would love to see more quality animation.
I'd love to see people get paid better.
I'd love to see them get paid better. I'd love to see people be happy. Because maybe if animators were happier, they wouldn't be on Twitter all the time.
Being so pissy?
Being so pissy, yeah. Same with comic book
creators.
They need a Snickers.
And a lot more money.
Yeah, so anyway, we're going to wrap this one up.
Yep.
Okay, so please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.
Now he's just tasty, delicious, rotten flesh meat, which I can consume. Don't read into it too much.
Just like our museum, the cafe's open and Brewster is eager to serve.
I don't think this was in the show. Run. Oh, you got splatted.
Oh, wait,
she was begging and you kicked her in the face.
I don't care.
Hey guys, Squid King here, and today we're in a...
Not girl boss at all. She is not a material girl.
She is not. Oh, it's Christmas time here in your mom. Nobody wants to join your mom.
What?
Like, I can't even cook kid cuisine right. I would last about 2 minutes with Gordon Ramsay.
What?
Where is he?
He's hiding. He's hiding from you.
Better.
Oh my God, you got the axe.
Walker, does this look like Steven Universe? Let me punch him! Well, I'm just here for the wax. Right where you belong.
Get in the dirt.
Well, that was a combination of events I probably shouldn't have put together. Anyways, let's open this bottle too.
Chica Pinata. Is that official?
Oh, no.
There's a bootleg.
Hello. I'm sorry.
Hey guys, it's Diamond Tool.
Let's make a farm.
Like and subscribe and buy my merch.
I mean, while you're here, you guys should like really like and subscribe and buy our merch, all of which we have.
That is true. You can't run them carrying trash. You can get away with one F-bomb per PG-13 movie.
I wish I'd known that sooner.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna wrap this effer up.
Yes.